Hermvids with Mr. Herman. Educational videos about reading and writing. Hello everyone, this is Mr. Herman, and this video is all about something called imagery. It's going to be exciting, so take notes, pay attention. Good luck. Imagery is going to be something that combines two of the previous units that we've already discussed in this class. Those are diction and detail. Quick reminder, diction is excellent word choice and detail is specific information. When you weave these things together, you can create something called imagery. So let me explain what imagery is. Imagery is sensory language, and by sensory, we mean the five senses. That's touch, smell, sight, sound, and taste. It doesn't have to be all of the five senses, it could just focus on one or a couple, but it enhances through specific detail and strong diction, meaning if you use great word choice when you write your imagery and use really specific details, it can really make your description come alive. If you're trying to describe how beautiful flowers are, you can go based on sight. You can use colors and specific images that way. Maybe you can go by smell. You go by sounds of the bees buzzing around the flowers. This is creating imagery to help a scene come alive in your reader's mind. Now, as we're going to be working with imagery in this class, one method that I like to use to help you guys brainstorm how to create imagery is something called the five senses chart. And it looks just like this. Say you wanted to describe the flowers from the previous slide. You would create a five senses chart just like this one. And you would write down next to each the senses that would apply to that item. For sight, it could be the yellow petals, the blue sky in the background, the long blades of green grass. For sounds, it could be the whooshing of the wind, the buzzing of the bees. The smells could be the aroma of the flowers, the aroma of freshly cut grass perhaps. Now, taste doesn't always apply, so you can always skip some of these. The touch could be the soft petals against your fingers. When you combine some of these things together, that's imagery. Usually imagery doesn't contain figurative language, but you can mix and match both of them. You can match a simile with some of the senses to enhance your description. It's basically up to you. You're the author. Now the question becomes how and when to use imagery. You can use it to your advantage. When you're introducing a new setting, for instance, or a new character or an object, that's a great time to use imagery. The reader's relying on your words to create an image in their mind, and that's exactly what you can do with this technique. Except imagery is more than just an image. It can be almost like a whole movie with smells and sounds added in. Just like I taught you guys with detail, you're going to show with your imagery instead of telling. You wouldn't say it was a scary house. That's telling. You would show that it's a scary house through the senses that you would have through walking through it. Maybe the sounds of the creaks of the floorboards, or maybe the dank, musky smell as you walk through. Could be the sight of the chipped paint and broken windows. That's showing instead of telling. Let's take a look at a few examples of professional authors using imagery. And I want you, as we go through, to figure out, okay, what is this imagery telling about this person, object, or setting? And also, which senses are they using, and why? Let's get started. This first example is from a great short story called The Most Dangerous Game. You may have read it in 9th grade. And let's start by reading this example, and we're going to answer the question, what does this imagery reveal about the character, setting, or object? He leaped upon the rail and balanced himself there to get greater elevation. His pipe, striking a rope, was knocked from his mouth. He lunged for it. A short, hoarse cry came from his lips as he realized he had reached too far and had lost his balance. The cry was pinched off short as the blood-warm waters of the Caribbean Sea closed over his head. Now, some examples of imagery in this are the short, hoarse cry, the sound, The sound of that cry shows you that he's desperate. The blood-warm waters of the Caribbean is the touch sense, and the blood warm is supposed to create some sort of dark sinking feeling. Blood warm especially gives you a hint of things to come. Here's an example from a song called Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds from the Beatles. Think of what type of imagery, meaning which sense, is used here. If you know the song, I'm going to read it, I'm not going to sing it. Picture yourself in a boat on a river with tangerine trees and marmalade skies. Somebody calls you, you answer quite slowly, the girl with kaleidoscope eyes. Cellophane flowers of yellow and green towering over your head. Look for the girl with the sun in her eyes and she's gone. Now the Beatles, more specifically John Lennon, used a lot of visual imagery here to show you that something's off about this dreamlike place that you're walking through with him. There's tangerine trees, marmalade skies, girl with kaleidoscope eyes. He even tells you to look with his imagery. It shows you that something's a little off. The next example is from the Hunger Games sequel Catching Fire. And in this scene, Katniss and her crew is experiencing some terrible gas, as you can see here. Droplets spring free of the body vapor. They burn, but not like fire. Less sense of heat and more of intense pain as the chemicals find our flesh, cling to it, and burrow down through the layers of skin. She uses the touch detail to make you feel what Katniss is feeling with this toxic gas. Even throws a little personification in here with the cling to it. Makes the chemicals seem like some sort of malevolent person. Last example. Great Gatsby. It's describing the area, I can't remember what it's called in Great Gatsby, but I think it's like the Valley of Ashes, that's what it is. And pay attention to the images that F. Scott Fitzgerald focuses on here. Occasionally, a line of gray cars crawls along an invisible track, gives out a ghastly creak and comes to rest, and immediately the ash-gray men swarm up with leaden spades and stir up an impenetrable cloud which screens their obscure operations from your sight. Now, colors is something that is pretty prevalent in The Great Gatsby, and in this scene, gray is referenced a few different times. So that image is meant to give you kind of a dusty, depressing look on this whole place. Also, the ghastly creak, that sound that he throws in there, is another way that he weaves imagery together to give you a feeling without showing you. He shows you, he doesn't tell you. Finally, how would you use imagery in your own writing? Well, you can make a story come alive to the mind of the reader when you add the senses. That's how we experience life, and that's how you can experience a story. You can add drama to a scene, just like in the Hunger Games, by painting a picture using the senses. Remember how Suzanne Collins uses that toxic gas imagery to really make that drama come alive. You can add humor by really getting into detail with your imagery. If you want to show how bad a character smells, you can really get into it by using some smell details. Finally, you're going to show someone, if you're writing nonfiction, what a person or place was like that they've never encountered. I guess that applies to fiction too, but say you're describing your high school to someone who's never been there before. If you use what it smelled like, what it sounded like, what it looked like, that'll make them feel like they're there. I'm excited to see what you guys are going to come up with in our imagery unit. There's lots of great stuff in there, so good luck.